Hello everyone! So today I wanted to make a video about driving in Australia because so far it has been an experience. I've made a video about driving in England before because I've lived there for a year, and as my name suggests, I'm Dutch, so I learned to drive in the Netherlands. So I drove a right-hand driving car on the right-hand side of the road, and then I drove that right-hand driving car on the left side of the road in England, and now I've driven a left-hand driving car on the left side of the road. So it's all been very different experiences. Now first off, let's start with the basics. So they drive on the left hand side of the road here, just as in England, because this used to be an English colony. Luckily they do use kilometers instead of miles. And I say luckily for me as a European. Now a big difference from driving in Europe is that about 90% here drives on automatic. The trucks you see on the road and like the tradie pickups, those probably are manual, but just about every other normal person car you see on the road will be an automatic. And if you want to drive here in Australia, you either need an Australian permit or an international license. This brings me to my first point, which is a pretty big difference from what I'm used to, which are the L and P plates. So the L plate is a learner permit. You get this by doing a knowledge test and an eye test, and you just pay a fee, and if you pass the test you get your L plate. You have to display this L plate always on the car that you are driving, and you cannot drive this car without an adult with a valid permit next to you. This permit can't be an L or a P permit, so they probably have at least 5 years of experience of driving. In Victoria you have to be at least 16 to get an L plate, and you have this L plate for 12 months. During these 12 months you basically learn how to drive. So this is a really big difference with the Netherlands, because we don't have L or P plates, so you have to take driver's lessons with an acknowledged company that are allowed to take non-drivers onto the street, and then pass a knowledge test and a driving test to get your whole permit. This means that there are a lot of cars on the road with 16-year-olds in it who have no clue what they're doing, which makes it quite a pain to get stuck behind an L plater. Now as an L plater you have to do at least 120 hours of driving, of which 10 hours need to be at night time to be able to progress to the next permit, next to the fact you can't have any bad behavior or any strikes, all that kind of stuff. The next plate you go for is your P1 plate, or the red P plate. This red P plate you will have for a year, and there are quite a few restrictions on what you can and cannot do when you have a P plate. There are restrictions on the kind of car you can drive, like how fast you can go and all those kind of things. But what stood out to me is that you're not allowed to use a mobile phone whatsoever, even if it's hands-free or Bluetooth. Next to this, there is a restriction that I can get behind because I know why they're doing this, is that you cannot have more than one passenger that is between 16 and 22 years old. Family is exempt of this, so if you have like 2 younger brothers and you're driving them to soccer practice, that's fine. But you are not allowed to stash 3 friends in a car and go off for a road trip, because you are not allowed to carry that many passengers between that age group. There are also stricter regulations on how much alcohol you can have, or how much merit points you can lose in a certain period of time. If you don't mess up, then after a year you can get your next P plate. There's a P2 plate, which is the green P plate, and you'll have this for 3 years with the same restrictions as the P1 plate. Now this was a whole lot of information, but it was just one of the biggest differences that I've seen from the Netherlands, maybe probably Europe, is that they just don't have driving lessons. They're available, but you hardly ever see anyone take them. Up to number 2, which is double lanes without lines. So important to know is that I drive in Victoria. I haven't really driven outside of the state yet, and every state has their own kinds of rules. So the things that I am talking about now might not apply to you if you're in the Northern Territories or New South Wales or anything like that. But within Melbourne I've really noticed that they have really broad roads, and at first I was kind of like confused by this, like why are the roads so broad? However, the really broad single lane actually operates as 2 lanes, except there's no line. So people are expected to either keep to the far left or the far right of the lane, so people can overtake them, for example, when they start turning right, or when there's a parked car on the street, you can actually go around it. Because they do park on the streets a lot. So when you come here and drive in Victoria, you're like, oh, what a nice broad lane. Don't go right on the middle of it, because that's not what they're for. My third point is something that weirded me out, is the turning on intersections. Now, there are kind of two types of turns for this. One of them is you're just standing in line next to the people who will go straight. You get a green light to go right, but you don't get a green light actually. So you get a green light, you ride up to the middle of the intersection, and then you have to wait for all the passing traffic that is going straight the other way. So after they have all passed, you can actually take your right turn. So there might be 5 people waiting to take that right turn, but because you have to wait for the other traffic to stop going first, maybe 2 or 3 cars get through, which is very annoying. And for me, this kind of defeats the purpose of having that traffic light, because the traffic light should give you right of way, but it doesn't. Another thing you need to be aware of, especially if you do left turns, is that the pedestrians often go at the same time as well. So you have to watch out for crossing pedestrians before you can actually take your left turn. However, there are also a lot of left turns that don't have a traffic light. I actually really like this. It's one of the better things that Victoria is doing, which is that when you drive up to an intersection, the left turning lane is just a free lane and you can just go when there's no traffic on the road you're merging on. Now, the second version of this is that you don't stop where everyone else is stopping. You literally just ride up straight on the middle of the intersection when there's like a little square you can stand on, and then you have to wait for your light and you're just standing on the middle of the intersection. It's really weird to me. The fourth thing is that the freeways are mayhem. So when I was driving in England, you drive on the left hand side of the road, and it's quite customary that if there are multiple lanes, you stay left as most as you can, and you only overtake on the right. However, at least here in Victoria, they just overtake left and right and no one merges, and it's just So I was in this situation that I was driving on the 3rd lane and I was behind someone going just under what I was trying to drive, but then I had someone on my left and someone on my right driving the exact same speed, and I was just boxed in. I couldn't go anywhere, and that's just because no one merges to the left. So people will just go to the outermost, like the 4th lane, and just drive there the whole time. Even when they're not overtaking and they have like 2 lanes next to them they could be merging on, they don't merge. So sometimes it's even more convenient to just go drive on the most left-hand side of the lane and overtake everyone there, because that's where no one drives. Now, there are basically 3 types of like freeways. So you have the highway, which is a major road connecting to cities or to like hubs or major towns as well. You have the freeways, which have like 4 lanes and connect intercity hubs, so within the city you'll have the freeway, and you have the tollways, which are freeways but not free. So they have tollways and it costs you money to drive on them, because instead of, you know, taking the tax that people pay to get roads, they let companies build a road and then take tolls to earn back the money they spend building that road. It's a bit of a weird concept to me. Now, I know a lot of other countries have tollways as well. We just in the Netherlands don't, and our roads are really good, so I don't know why this is still a practice. I don't know why I'm doing this. And lastly, one of the reasons I got boxed in on the freeway is because everyone religiously drives the speed limit. And this has a reason, which I didn't know at first, and my very nice Uber driver actually informed me about this. He called this revenue raising. Because the thing is that speeding is fined very heavily. So if you do 5 kilometers over the speed limit, instead of getting, you know, like a €70 fine, you get a fine for $200 or $400, which is insane. So my Uber driver actually called this revenue raising, and they do this because they obviously need to earn their money back, even though they do tax the cars and everything else. I don't know why they need more money. But so because it's fined so heavily to drive just a little bit over the speed limit, no one does it. So on the freeways the speed limit would be 100, and you'll be hard stressed to find someone going 120. People might go up to 110, but that's about it. Which is insane for me as a European, because even though we have hefty fines as well, people will still be gunning past you with 140 on the freeway when you're supposed to be doing 120. I'm sure there are a lot more like differences in driving. I just haven't been driving here a lot, so I'm sure there are more things I could say about this, but this is the major things that I have seen so far. If you have something to say about driving in Australia, or maybe driving in your own country, let me know down in the comments. If I was helpful, please give me a thumbs up so I know I'm doing a good job. And other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye! As they do in England, because this was... Shush! What are you doing?